back here on the Duncan Duo Show talking about the local real estate market. As everyone knows, it's almost tax time. And while some people like me dread tax time, there are a lot of people that celebrate because they get a refund this time of year. Those self-employed people out there and those that own their own business view this as like, the worst time of year because, no, you're writing a check, a check that sometimes you don't want to write. But nonetheless, we want to talk in this segment about the show. I wanted to give Arnie and David with the Waterstone Mortgage a chance to, give some tips to some people that are thinking about buying a home and how crucial their tax refund could be to their down payment or to their reserves in order to buy a home. So I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to give some tips to our listeners out there that are in that position, or maybe have friends or family members or children that are in that position.
Yeah, I mean, if you're fortunate enough to be getting a little bit back from Uncle Sam this year, I mean, I think there's a lot of things you can do with it. Again, it depends on what your goals are, but there's some people that are definitely putting that towards their down payment. Some of those that are definitely going to pay off some debt so they can, become in a better situation. There's a lot of people with credit card debt, student loan debt. Maybe they're able to pay off a car. It just really depends. But, it's one of those things where, they say, well, why, why? Even if you have to pay this money, a little bit on tax time, it doesn't feel good. But, it's one of those things where you can change your withholding and you can change, this and that. But is it really worth it? I mean, there's a lot of things that we can do with the tax money, and it's just one of those things where what makes the most sense for yourself.
Right, like maybe it's paying off debt, maybe it's using it for the down payment, maybe it's keeping it in reserves. There's a lot of different variables, but don't people? It seems to me like people use that as a springboard to purchasing. Like they get that refund, and
I know they do in the car industry quite a bit because I just recently was out with my daughter looking for a car, and they said their business is like going crazy with everybody with the tax refunds. But so I think that you may want to think about it before you go out and buy a new car. If you're looking to get into if you're renting now. You want to get into an investment for the future as opposed to a car, which is not going to be a long-term investment.
Well, and I think the other thing you look at is there's always, even if you don't need the tax return for your down payment or you don't need it to qualify, use it for, save it for your furniture, save it for your stuff once you buy the home and move in. Don't buy the furniture before the mortgage. I'm sure you guys have heard those horror stories. A lot of people make the mistake of making a big purchase shortly before they're ready to or during the process of buying a home, and I've seen those blow up transactions many times. They go out and buy a truck while they're under contract. They go, they go buy furniture at Rooms to Go, but it's 0% interest. I don't have to pay for 13 months. It does not matter. It's still going to hurt you.
I have another caveat to that. If we just had a client, actually a mutual client of ours, Andrew, and nicest guy in the world. Just got married mid process, 2 weeks before the closing. So that changes, some
that changes a little bit. Yeah.
Some
you might want to tell us.
Yeah, some information that could have been known yesterday.
That's funny. That is funny.
But so any change in your profile, changing jobs, things that we kind of take for granted. But let's make sure that everyone.
Here's the other tips: is we are in the time for preparation for taxes, and you are going to look to buy a home. Let's be careful about what you're deducting.
I think that's a big point, right?
Yeah,
that is huge.
Point, yeah.
Do you know how often we run into that, especially for self-employed people? They go get their taxes done, and then in May they come out and say, okay, I'm ready to buy a house. And they're like, did you talk to your mortgage person and have them connect with your CPA ahead of time? Because that would really help.
It used to be
everybody.
It used to be only self-employed. Now we're seeing it a lot even on W-2 borrowers. And that's why the documentation piece of trying to get pre-approved is so important. Like, let's review that ahead of time, or else your deal is going to potentially.
And I think people sometimes maybe there's an air of arrogance with someone that's in a position like this, and they think, oh, I'll qualify, I got good credit, no big deal, and they forget how important that tax return is for verifying the income today, especially with what's happened with the real estate market, how strict the guidelines are now. So they think, oh, I'm going to write off all this stuff, it's not going to be a big deal. I got plenty of money, I got money in the bank, well, yada yada yada. And then come to find out their income is slashed by 50% by deductions, and guess what? You just lost your ability to qualify. If you'd have talked to your lender ahead of time and had your lender connect with your CPA and kind of had your whole team in touch with each other, you'd have had a much better chance at resolving that. Now you got to wait a year.
But it's only that point, Andrew. It's the point of where I don't want to call it an arrogance of a buyer, but it's just the assumption that yes, of course I can qualify.
Right.
And so it's a little lag on the on getting the documents to be reviewed. So we can look at W-2s, we can look at pay stubs, bank statements, but if we don't have tax returns, we're never going to know if that.
And one of the new things with the Dodd-Frank regulations and all the things that the lenders have to do now, whether you give us tax returns or not, we're going to have to request transcripts from the IRS. And so if there's deductions on there, it's going to come out in the wash anyway, and that could affect your transaction when you're halfway down the road. So it's one of those things that, we coach our loan officers, get the tax returns whether you need them or not, so we can look at them, because for one thing, to order transcripts, you have to go off the address that's on the tax return. It's not always your current address, so you have to have that address. And that's something that will always pop up. I mean, it literally has, I can tell you, it's created issues on many, many, many deals.